It was just about a month ago on a Sunday evening when all of a sudden outside of my house, I heard lots of honking and lots of people shouting. I went outside with Remy, and there was car after car after car lined up on Baltimore Avenue, generating a parade for me, just to say hello, just to say thank you, and to make contributions to the food pantry through a basket that was placed on the sidewalk in front of my house. I stood out there and just savored it. I savored it because it was so joyful. It was so overwhelmingly wonderful. There was such energy and enthusiasm and happiness in the air. Even my neighbors were coming out of their homes to watch and take in the positive feeling of this parade. It was such a gift to me. I was so grateful. And for the rest of that week and the rest of the month since then, I have gone back to that moment as one of the many great moments of this time of sheltering at home. One of the great moments that shows the generosity of this community, the tenacity of this community, the faith and the humility of this community at work. That we've done what we've been asked to do, and we continue to be obedient to that. And yet we find ways to bring the gospel to life. Yet we find ways to keep living our faith and taking good care of each other and letting the light of Christ shine through us for a world who really need to see it. That parade for me just will be an ongoing symbol of the vitality of the St. Elizabeth Parish community. And in the midst of this pandemic, we are good news, just as we always are. I want to highlight for you that this community has continued to put the gospel into action in so many ways. We've been doing that for over a century, but in these days it has been a little more challenging, and yet we have not only continued, but have expanded the ministry of St. Elizabeth Parish. Our school has gone to the challenging model of distance learning. Our teachers made a very quick rotation over spring break to go from classroom learning to distance learning. And as our principal, Mr. Riley, says, we didn't just go to a pass-fail model. We didn't just kind of float through the rest of the year. Our teachers kept teaching. Our students kept learning. We were really challenging ourselves to keep the ministry of St. Elizabeth School alive, so that it wasn't just putting in the days. It was really accomplishing the work of teaching and forming our children in faith. I am so proud to be here in the midst of that, to see what our teachers, our students, and parents have done to finish this school year in a vital way so that we can continue into next year with an uninterrupted flow of learning. That distance learning could have been a very unstimulating time. It could have been a time in which we just decided to float through, but we made a choice, all of us, to keep the ministry of education vital and alive, and we're ending this school year with a very strong spirit. We've also managed a way to live stream masses in the midst of these days. We've expanded our use of YouTube, and we have had every weekend generous volunteers who have come forward to help Susie Adams and myself as we celebrate the liturgy in the chapel and live stream it to people's homes and make it continually available throughout the week so that people can gather in our homes and gather as a community, as it were, even though it's virtually, and still celebrate the source and summit of our faith, that is the Eucharist. Along with that, our food pantry has not only continued to function, our food pantry has gone above and beyond, reaching out to offer help to people who aren't in our boundaries. Typically, that's our realm of service, that we minister to people in our boundaries, as every Catholic parish is called to do. But our food pantry has stretched its generosity to meet people who come to us in need no matter where they live. And people have brought groceries every day. When I've been in the office, I have a perfect view out my window to see people arriving and putting food in the basket, and then to see that food be brought in by Teresa and other volunteers and taken down to the food pantry. We have extended the generosity of our food pantry in the midst of this pandemic, and it is such a sign of the presence of Christ here. So we can be very proud of that as well. We've also made the great commitment to call every parish household. Hopefully everyone received a phone call from someone in this community just asking how you're doing and asking if there's anything we can pray for you about, and any way that we can help you. That heartfelt outreach continued under our pastoral care ministry, which has continued to offer that outreach to people who have expressed some needs or concerns. So not only in terms of feeding with physical food, but feeding with kindness and feeding with compassion and solidarity. That outreach has continued. I'm proud to say we've also continued to offer adult faith formation online through Zoom classes. We've given people an opportunity to keep learning faith, to keep practicing faith, and some of our small faith groups have continued to meet, so that the work of learning our faith and building our faith and praying together has only deepened. I'm proud to say, too, that the challenging work of administration has continued. There have been many demands since all this began, as some of our income has fallen off a bit. But many people have continued to bring gifts. Some people have even expressed a desire to increase what they give. Many people have started to use the giving app. It's been wonderful to see that spirit of generosity continue and stay strong and get even stronger for some of us. There have been ongoing challenges in terms of personnel and just managing the shifts that this has created. Vicki Kinney in our office has worked so hard to maintain communication with the diocese and to continue to keep our employees paid and to continue to evolve things as they have had to do. Also maintaining our buildings. Our maintenance staff have continued to be present because that work continues whether we're here or not. So we're so grateful to our parish staff, our teaching staff, everybody for the incredible ministry that has continued, and so many volunteers. I just thanked Kendall Sin this past week at the end of Mass for the first time, but he's been there every time we have live streamed a liturgy. And the pay is terrible, I know, Kendall, but we're grateful to so many who have continued to volunteer, to help, to step up in new ways so that the gospel can keep coming to life through St. Elizabeth Parish. So in the midst of these days, the need has evolved, it has shifted, and we have evolved and shifted with it, and we have continued the outreach of St. Elizabeth Parish even further than it has been in the past. I think we've grown, we have evolved, we have developed in powerful and beautiful new ways that show a great willingness to keep becoming who Christ is calling us to be. So that parade that took place outside my house, it's just been a great metaphor for a faith that's joyful, that's generous, that's proclaimed and lived in powerful, beautiful, and profound ways. So I thank you for that. I want to add that before all this pandemic started, we had some ongoing challenges. We've talked about those every year at State of the Parish, and unfortunately, those have remained. Income has remained basically flat. Expenses have either increased or remained about the same, but far exceeding what tithing income provides. So that's a challenge for us as a parish going forward. I can tell you we're not alone. It faces probably every parish with a school. It faces every parish who is trying to grow ministries. It faces every faith community, but I know that we have the gifts, the talents, the blessings, and the resolve to meet that challenge. So you'll receive a mailing that highlights that reality, that income is not keeping up with expenses, that expenses far exceed what we're bringing in terms of tithing, and we try to cover that gap in as many ways as we possibly can. But ideally, our tithing would cover our expenses. Many of us give heroically. Many of us give more than the 10%. We're asked to give back to God, 5% to the parish, 1% to the diocese, and 4% to other charities. Many of us give more than 5% to St. Elizabeth, and I commend those of us who continue that kind of generosity. And others of us are on the road. We're making strides and doing our best to keep seeking that 5% to our parish, 1% to the diocese, and 4% to other charities. Others of us have a long way to go. Others of us haven't gotten on the road yet. But I know, we all know, that this community will be capable of that much more if everybody begins to participate through tithing. So I challenge you, if you aren't tithing at all now, to find a way to start. That's, I think, one of the keys. For me, years ago as a pastor, it was to start giving and just to give what I thought I could. And I've learned over the years, you can always give more than you think. And God really does enable that spirit of generosity. Once we open our hearts to it, we can keep giving. I know we're in the midst of a capital campaign, and everyone has done a tremendous job of staying faithful to those pledges. But it also is crucial for us to keep the foundation strong, the foundation of our ministries that I've highlighted, that have not only sustained but blossomed beautifully in the last couple of months. So I ask you to keep, if you will, the parade of generosity at St. Elizabeth alive, and to strengthen it, to deepen it, to broaden it. Because what I've learned in my own life is that giving is not just for the benefit of the other. It benefits me. I have a need to give. Every human being has a need to give, because as people made in the image and likeness of God, we realize that God's nature is to give. God's nature is to be generous. That's how we're made, and we'll find a great peace and a joy and a contentment in that same spirit of generosity. So keep the parade of generosity alive and do what you can to make it even stronger and deeper, so that as this community goes forward into our next century, we will only become more well known for being a good neighbor and the presence of Christ in the world.